Hi everyone, I'm Steve and this is the College Support Network. In the past, I've worked in high schools as a college advisor, and I also have experiences working in college financial aid, academic advising, as well as admissions. I'm really passionate about college access, and I know applying to college can be really confusing as well as really frustrating. That's why I'm here to provide you all with the most accurate and quality information so you can reach your college goals. Alright y'all, for today's video, I want to talk about non-federal loans. In specific, I'm going to talk about things such as state-funded loans, loans from your colleges and universities, as well as private loans. However, before we start though, there are some important things I want to note. As always, the very first thing I want to note is that I am not a financial aid advisor. I am not here to provide you all with information about which loans are going to be the best option for you, which loans you should take out, and how much of that loan you should take out. My goal here is just to provide you all with the most accurate and quality information about financial aid, and specifically loans, so you can make informed decisions about your college career. Next, just like my last video about federal loans, I want to be answering 3 different things as I walk through different loan programs for you. The very first is, what exactly is this loan or loan program? The second is, what are the eligibility requirements? And the third is, how can you apply for it? Lastly, if you enjoyed this video at all or if you learned anything, feel free to give it a thumbs up as well as share it with any friends or family that might find it useful. It really does help my channel out. With that being said, let's get started. Alright y'all, before we start talking about different loan programs, it might be really important for you to learn exactly what a loan is first. To put it in the most simple terms, a loan is just a form of financial aid that you eventually have to pay back with interest on top. Essentially, you're borrowing money from a specific lender to pay for your educational costs, and then after you're done graduating or after you're not in school anymore, you will have to pay off that same full amount with some money on top known as the interest. And as I mentioned in a lot of other videos, interest is a big differentiating factor between different loan programs. So some loans are going to be subsidized, some loans aren't going to be subsidized, some loans will have interest rates that are as high as 10% and some will have it as low as 2.5%. So it really just depends on what loan you're taking out. You'll learn more about it in this video, but in general, just note that every single loan or loan program is going to have different things that they do with their interest. And with that being said, let's talk about the very first loan for today, and that's state-funded loans. To put it simply, state-funded loans are just loans that are offered by the state government. And depending on where you live, you might be telling yourself right now, wait, I didn't know my state had state-funded loans. And the reason for this is because state-funded loans actually aren't really common at all. For example, my home state of California actually doesn't provide a very robust state loan program. They offer some very small loans for specific careers and majors. However, for the most part, there isn't a loan that's offered to the general public. Most states, just like California, are going to offer their own grants and scholarships. However, they'll leave loan programs specifically to the federal government as well as private lenders. With that being said though, there are some states that provide state-funded loan programs such as Alaska and Texas. This is all just to say that depending on what state you live in and what state you plan on going to school, you might have more or less options for state-funded loans. So what are the eligibility requirements for state-funded loans? Honestly, just like before, it really does depend on the state. For example, if you want to be eligible for some of the loans in Alaska, you have to be a high school graduate, you also have to be a resident of Alaska, and then you have to enroll in an eligible in-state or out-of-state degree program. The last part there is actually pretty interesting because most states, for example Texas, actually requires you to go to school in that exact state if you want to get state loans. And then on top of this, some state-funded loan programs will require you to demonstrate financial need, while others don't really care, they'll still offer you the loan. I think the important thing to remember here is that it just really depends on the state, so that's why I really recommend you all to contact different financial aid offices and maybe even the state to learn more about the different options that you have for state-funded loans. Alright y'all, so what's the application process like? I hate to sound like a broken record, but honestly it really just depends on the state again. Some states will require one application, some states will require multiple applications, some will require you to do a credit check, and some won't really care at all. Just like before, I really encourage you all to contact the state that's funding the program to learn more about that process. In general though, pretty much every single state will require students to complete the free application for federal student aid, also known as a FAFSA. So if you haven't done that yet, I really do recommend you all to complete it if you are eligible. Alright y'all, let's talk about some of the loans that are offered by the colleges and institutions that you enroll in. As you'll find out very soon, a lot of the information that I'm going to talk about here is going to be really similar to what I just talked about regarding state-funded loans. Just like state-funded loans, the loans that you're offered by the institutions that you enroll in are really going to depend on what school you're going to. For example, let's say that you're going to a California State University or CSU, just like CSU LA or Chico State. You'll find pretty soon that there's actually not a lot of loans that are offered to the general student population. However, if you go to the University of California or UC, you'll find that there's actually some loan programs depending on the campus that you go to. For example, UCI has the university loan that's offered to their students, and then Berkeley has their Berkeley loan. And then when we talk about private schools, everything's going to be entirely different. Some private schools will offer a loan, and then some won't. And then the ones that do provide a loan, it's actually going to look really different from the loan program that another private school is going to offer. And once again, the point I'm trying to make here is that every single campus is going to be different, and every student situation is going to be a little bit different. So it's really hard for me to say exactly what schools offer what. If money for college is going to be an issue for you or your family in the near future at all, I highly recommend you to put the responsibility on yourself to learn more so you can finance your degree. So with all that being said, what does the eligibility requirements look like for institutional loans? You guessed it, it really depends. In general, you should be able to find most of the eligibility requirements for different loans at specific campuses on their financial aid website. With that being said though, I would say in general, most institution loan programs will require students to demonstrate financial need. For example, UC San Diego has a university loan that requires students to demonstrate needing financial aid to go to school there. Another example of this can be seen at Occidental College, which is a private school in California, but they offer the Ox Low Interest Loan, which is offered to students who demonstrate financial need and then demonstrate their inability to fully pay for their college costs from their own pocket. And on top of financial need, most colleges will also require students to also go to that school, obviously, and they also require students to be enrolled at least part-time, as well as maintaining their grades. And when I say maintain grades, it really just depends on what the school wants. Some schools consider maintaining your grades at least a 2.0, while others require a 3.0. So like I said, it just really depends. So how do you apply? Pretty much every single college is going to have their own application process, but I would say a large majority of them will require students to have at least a free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA like I mentioned earlier. As always though, I still recommend you to get clarification from the financial aid offices at the specific schools that you want to go to, so you can learn more about what you need to do to get that loan. Alright y'all, the very last loan I want to talk about today is private loans. And to put it in the most simplest terms, private loans are just loans that are not offered by the government or the college or university that you're enrolling in. When I think about private loan lenders, I think about banks, credit unions, private, non-profit, and for-profit organizations, and then various other entities or programs. I know I mentioned at the top of this video that I won't be telling you which loans are going to be better than other loans and which loans I recommend you ought to take out. However, I do really want to briefly mention here that in general, I don't recommend private loans to most students. In general, the other loans I mentioned today, and more specifically the federal loans I mentioned in the last video, they're all going to be better options than private loans. To elaborate, federal loans have terms and conditions that are actually set by the law. And then on top of this, they also provide you with fixed interest rates as well as income repayment plans. Fixed interest rates just means that the interest rate that you signed up for when you signed the contract for the loan is going to be the same interest that you have the entire time you're paying off that loan. This is very different from a lot of private loans that offer variable interest rates, just because the interest rate that you sign up for in the beginning might be 2%, but then a year later it's going to be 10%. So that's why it's a little bit better to just have that fixed interest rate, because you know exactly how much you're going to be paying once you're done or once you graduate. And then income-driven repayment plans just means that your monthly student loan payment is intended to be very affordable based on your income and family size. And this is different from private loans because most of them will require you to pay a specific amount that's not based on your income. So a lot of the times you might be paying more than you actually make or bring in. On top of this, many private loans actually require students to begin making payments while they're still in school. So this means while you're taking your classes, stressing from all your exams, trying to socialize and make friends and pay for your housing and all of that, you still have to pay off that loan at the same time. And the last important thing to know about private loans is that a lot of them are not subsidized. This means that the moment you take out the loan, interest is going to accrue until you pay off the entire loan. I know this all sounds really bad, but that's just because a lot of private loans are not that great of an option. This isn't to say that every single private loan is a bad loan and that no one should take out private loans. There's actually a lot of good ones out there, but I would still recommend most students to exhaust their federal loans, state loans, and maybe even college loans if they offer it first before they start taking out private loans. There's actually a lot more things I could talk about in terms of federal loans versus private loans, so if you want more information about that, I'll be making a dedicated video in the future, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Alright y'all, so with that being said, what are the eligibility requirements for private loans? You guessed it, it really depends. Since every private loan has their own lender, the eligibility requirements are going to be different for every single one of them. With that being said though, I would say most private loans will require both students and parents to have a credit history as well as a stable income. However, some loan providers will actually approve you even if you have bad credit history or unstable income. And to be honest, these are probably the loans that you want to stay away from. And the last thing to talk about eligibility for private loans is that most of them actually don't require you to demonstrate financial need. For the most part, if you meet some of the eligibility that I just mentioned and you are attending a college or degree program, oftentimes private loans will work with you to figure out if you're going to be eligible and then from there determine how much aid you'll get. Finally, let's talk about the application process for private loans. Unlike any of the other loans I mentioned today, the majority of them will actually not require you to complete the FAFSA. However, some of them will. Like I said before, it really just depends. Generally though, most of these private loan lenders will have their own separate application where you have to answer questions about your household income, the college that you're going to, the degree that you're pursuing, and then information about your credit history. From there, the answers and responses that you provide will give the private loan lender more information about whether you're going to be eligible for the loan or not. Alright y'all, that's all I have for today. I know there's a lot more information that can be talked about regarding loans, but the purpose of this video was just to provide you all with general information about loans so you can learn more about the different options that may be available to you. And before I let you all go, I do have one question for you. And that question is, based on what you learned so far about federal loans, state loans, institutional loans, as well as private loans, which ones are you more interested in taking out and why? As always, leave some of your answers down below. And with that, that's all I have for today. You could have been doing anything else, but you spent it here with me learning about college, and more specifically, non-federal loans. I think that's super awesome. As always, thumbs if you learned, and subs if you loved. Take care, y'all.